Good morning again. I'm Skylar Woods-Nunley, co-coordinator of the Mental Health Ministry. And behalf of the other coordinators, Pam Mickens and Dr. Janice Moore, the St. Luke United Methodist Community United Methodist Church, and our Mental Health Ministry, we would like to welcome you to our October programming and our support group. And our support group will start at the conclusion of our educational segment. Today's topic is very important and very close to our heart. It's about suicide and its impact on Black, Brown, and youth. I'm elated to announce that we have a subject matter expert who is experienced and passionate about his call to heal and transform. I will introduce him later, as well as the group facilitator, who is also a ministry member. I would like to give you an overview of today's agenda. The flow of today's agenda includes an opening prayer. We have a CEU and evaluation instruction. We will have disclaimers, our objectives, and then introduction of our presenter. Dr. Janice Moore and Landy Blackmore go over the administrative information for today's programming. Please note that we record the educational program for public viewing for your convenience. However, we discontinue the recording during the support group segment of our program for today. After all the inductions have been done, you would then hear from our featuring speaker. Please enter questions or comments in the chat box. In addition, our presenter is asking for interactive presentation, so feel free to ask questions during his presentation. You may also have the option of putting in your comments in the chat box. Once the educational presentation is over, there may be time for a few more questions, and then we will transition into our support group. We will read the support group covenant. After I have introduced our speaker for the facilitator's introduction, we will make announcements and have our closing prayer. And at this time, we're ready to go ahead and kick off our educational segment by our opening prayer with Sister Ida Miller.
Thank you. Can we just bow our heads for a word of prayer? Most gracious Heavenly Father God, we just come thanking you, praising you just for being who you are. We thank you for your loving kindness and tender mercies that you have extended to each and every one of us today, God. Father, I come and I pray and I ask that you just bless each and every person that's on the Zoom line, Father God, and those who are calling by phone. I pray that you would meet each and every one of them at the point of their needs. Father God, we also come asking for our forgiveness. Anything that we have said or done that has not been respectful or that has been honorable in your sight, we ask that you forgive us, that you meet each and every person at the point of our needs. Father, I pray that you put a hedge of protection around each and every one. Whatever that they stand in need of today, I pray that you meet them at the point of their need. So, Father, I ask that your kingdom come and your perfect will be done in each and every person's life. And we'll be careful to give you all the praise, the glory, the honor that is due you. In the matchless name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So now we have the CEU disclaimer and instruction with Landy Blackmore.
Good morning, everyone. We will have the CEU link posted throughout the presentation, so feel free to go to the chat and access the link. And also, even if you just want to give feedback on the presentation or topics for the future, please still fill out the survey because it helps us plan what we're doing in the future. And we're happy to be here, and Hickory Trail is here providing those CEUs. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Janice.
Good morning. The CEU disclosure for Hickory Trail Hospital. Presentations our views expressed may not necessarily be those of Hickory Trail Hospital or St. Luke Community United Methodist Church. Hickory Trail is a behavioral facility which provides services to adults 18 years and older, and in accordance to the Fair Market Practice Act. Hickory Trail Hospital has no expectation of receiving any referrals for providing the educational credits to the participants. Participants must adhere to the requirements to receive credit as follows: be present for the full presentation, and this is confirmed by the Zoom record. Be an active participant and contribute to the discussion as appropriate. Complete and submit the written evaluation timely and no longer than 48 hours after the event. Once all conditions have been met, a certificate of completion will be provided. All presenters, planners, authors must disclose any conflicts of interest, and they must be resolved prior to implementation of the presentation. The Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council is interested in any concerns related to the approved CE activities. Complaints may be submitted at 1-800-821-3205. And this is a 24-hour toll-free complaint system. Moving on to the objectives for today's session. The objectives for suicide impact on Black, Brown, and youth are: 1, to identify reasons that we should be aware of suicide for Black, Brown, and youth. 2, learn risk factors or warning signs for this crisis. 3, recognize protective factors and hope. Okay, the educational support group disclaimer statement. The St. Luke Community United Methodist Church Mental Health Ministry is not a substitute for professional treatment for a person experiencing mental health concerns or symptoms. The St. Luke Community United Methodist Church Mental Health Ministry does not provide mental health services or any other health services. The educational support group participants are encouraged to seek professional services from licensed psychiatrists, psychologists, licensed professional counselors, social workers, or other behavioral health professionals and healthcare professionals if and when necessary.
Okay, thank you. So now this is one of the favorite times of the programming for me. I'd like to ask if there's any first-time participants, if you're okay with unmuting and let us know what you're hoping to hear from our topic today. And also, if you're not a first-time participant, if just one of our participants will let us know what they hope to get out. So our presenter's listening to make sure that he covers your interest. Is this anyone's first time coming today?
Hi, this is Tamara Brown. And
okay, good. We have two. Yay. Okay, go ahead, Tamara, and then we'll go to Greta next.
Hi, Tamara Brown. This is my first time attending today. I'm glad to be participating.
Okay, we're so happy you were able to join us. Thank you.
Greta Flanoy, and I too am a first-time participant.
Well, thank you for being here. We hope to see you next month. So we have you on the list now. So we'll be looking forward to seeing you in November. Okay, we have someone in the chat that says, oh, this is not the first time, but I'm hoping to hear how to learn how to help loved ones and the community at large. Thank you. That's a great, we'd like to hear that as well. So it is my pleasure to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. Our speaker is David Gethers. He is the CEO of Two Gethers Foundation and Defy the Odds. He has obtained his bachelor's degree in communication and his master's degree in urban ministry from Olivet Nazarene University. Our speaker is an author. He's a social impact leader for marginalized people and communities. He is an expert in transition and transformation. He is a certified mental health first aid educator. He is also a reentry consultant, and he is a United States Marine Corps veteran. Thank you for your service. At this time, I will go ahead and turn it over to our speaker, David.
Good morning, all. It is truly a pleasure to be joining you this Saturday morning here from the beautiful state of Texas, where we have beautiful weather. Unlike the weather from which I come from, I'm originally from Chicago, and I now reside in Texas. I've been here about 3 years now. I moved here July the 1st, 2020, in the midst of a pandemic. But my purpose for being with you this morning is to have what I like to call an open conversation about mental health, suicide, and the effects that it has on Black and brown people. And I won't bore you with a straight lecture style. What I do is I'm going to share my story with you. And as I'm sharing my story, I would definitely love for you all to ask me questions. You can raise your hand, put it in the chat. The facilitator could ask me whatever the questions are for me to continue to talk about them. But I'm just going to share this journey of mine and how I've made it to today. And I can start by saying it was not an easy task. It was not an easy journey. It was full of pain and suffering. There were some good days as well. It was full of ups and downs. It was full of disappointment. But through it all, I kept the end goal in mind. And the end goal was to maintain my health, but more importantly, to maintain my presence here on the earth. Because as much as I love Jesus Christ, as much as I love God, and much as I'm looking forward to walking down the streets paved with gold, as much as I'm looking forward to going through the pearly gates and receiving my crown and having all of my jewels and rubies placed in my crown, I don't want to go just yet. So I want to stay here on earth for as long as I can, continue to have an impact in the areas that I can have an impact, and just make a difference in people's lives. And I believe that that's why God has placed me on this particular journey, because when they were sitting down in heaven and they was having their daily meetings and they was passing out assignments, they looked at me and said, I believe he can handle this assignment. And so it was placed upon my shoulders, and here I am. So life for me began in Chicago, Illinois, 1972, July the 2nd to be exact. 17-year-old lady by the name of Ruby Ann Gethers, which is my mother, she gave birth to me. And my mother was a 17-year-old transplant from Knoxville, Tennessee, who moved to Chicago a year prior when she was 16 because she lost her mother at the age of, my grandmother was about 42 years old. And so my grandmother died, my mother moved to Chicago, completely lost, have no idea what she's going to do with her life. And as life would have it, unmarried Black woman in Chicago, she had a son by the name of David A. Gethers. And she would raise me on the south side of Chicago in a community called Inglewood. And she would do the very best she could given the circumstances that she found herself in. Throughout my life growing up in Chicago, I describe it in 3 words: underserved, underfunded, and under-resourced. For a Black man like me growing up on the south side of Chicago, there was not much in the terms of hope and opportunities. In fact, it was said that I would either be dead or in prison by the time I was 18 years old. This just how dilapidated the community in which I was born and raised in was. As a way of escaping, I joined the United States Marine Corps. I believe that this would be my way out of poverty. This would be my way out of Chicago. This would be out of my way out of the Inglewood community. I had this dream that I would join the United States Marine Corps. I would spend 20 to 30 years in the Marine Corps, and wherever my boat ship landed, I would plant my flag, pitch my tent, and I would begin to live this beautiful life that I have carved out for myself, long, far away from Chicago, Illinois. But as fate and life would have it, due to a training exercise in the United States Marine Corps, I suffered a catastrophic injury. I end up having to have reconstructive bone and nerve ulnar surgery. In other words, I had to have this whole portion from about right here all the way up to about right here. I had to have that portion reconstructed through the bone and the nerve so that I can just have usage of my right hand. And because of the nature of this injury and because of the task that I was responsible with in the United States Marine Corps, I heard words that no Marine, let alone any soldier, ever want to hear. I was unfit to be a Marine. I was paralyzed partially in my right hand, couldn't use it. I mean, it was just damaged beyond repair, per se. And so I was unceremoniously discharged out of the Marine Corps, and I was sent back to the last place I ever wanted to be on earth. I was sent back to Chicago, Illinois, to the community that I thought I had escaped. You can only imagine my disappointment. You can only imagine my hurt. You can only imagine my anger, my fears. I returned to Chicago lost, unprepared, and unaware of what was going to happen with my life next. And so because of that, I began to make a series of bad decisions. And July the 22nd, 1996, at 5 p.m. in the evening, one of those bad decisions was I got into an argument with another young man who looked like me, lived in the same community as me, facing the same problems and difficulties as me. He had his own baggage and his challenges and his struggles. I had my struggles as well. Someone, can you please mute your phone or your camera, whatever it is, because we can hear you in the background.
Thank you. I was going to make that announcement. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. And so me and this young man, we got into an argument, and sadly, I end up killing that young man, taking his life. You're talking about a disappointment, and you're talking about a life that now has totally taken a left turn. And so as a consequence of me taking this young man's life, I received a 30-year prison sentence in 1998. In Illinois, prison sentences are 100%. So I'm gonna give you an opportunity to do some math. 1998, I received a 30-year prison sentence, and I'm supposed to do every day of those 30 years. Every single day of those 30 years. So for my mathematicians on the line and my saints on the line who know what miracles are, as you can tell, I'm talking to you long before that 30-year prison sentence ends. That prison sentence is not supposed to end until September the 12th, 2028. But I am here today, not from a prison cell, not from a mental health hospital, but from the comforts of my home, engaging in this wonderful conversation with you all this morning. And so I'll never forget when I went to prison. Here it is. At this time I was 26 years old, and I'm going to spend the next 30 years in prison. And I got to prison on a Wednesday morning. By Friday morning, I was in segregation. Segregation is a unit where they separate you from everybody. You're in a room completely by yourself. You're locked up 23 hours out of the day. You have no outside contact, no community whatsoever. You're in this cell all by yourself. And while I'm sitting in this cell, can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we can, but we need that person
but
to
we
mute,
need to
whoever that
mute
is.
Sister Valeria Bowling.
Okay. And so as I'm sitting in this prison cell, the thoughts of suicide began to enter into my mind. And I began to contemplate. We have a Sybil Hawkins waiting in the waiting room, want to get in, if anybody can let her in. The thoughts of suicide began entering my mind on a daily basis. I just, for whatever reason, I could not shake this feeling of suicide while I was sitting in this prison cell. And I never forget, my mother came to visit me one day, and I'm very early in my incarceration. I believe I had been incarcerated at this moment about 30 days. And I tell people all the time, I am grateful for a mother who could hear the words that I never spoke. I'm gonna say that again. She could hear the words that I never spoke. Because we're sitting there and we're visiting with each other, and I'm assuming she saw something in my eyes. She could hear something in the way I was talking. She could sense something in her spirit. And she grabbed my hand, she looked me dead in my face, and she said, "Son, if you do not give up on me, I'm not gonna give up on you, and together we will make it." Now, in my mind, I'm like, how in the world are we gonna make it? Do you see where I am? Do you see how they treat me? Do you see what I'm going through? And I'm supposed to be here for the next 30 years, 26. Life has been nothing short of disappointments after disappointments after disappointments, hurts after hurts after hurts, setback and failures after setbacks and failures. And now you're telling me that we're going to make it, we're going to survive a 30-year prison sentence, and we're going to come out on the other side? In my mind, I'm like, there's no way possible for us to make it. There's no way possible for us to overcome this. There's no way possible to get to the other side. And my mental health began to...
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Miss Sybil, you need to mute your mic, honey. We can hear you. And this is very, very important. Thank you. I apologize. We're having problems muting people and we're doing our best. Okay, carry on. Yes.
And so my mental health began to take a devastating toll. I'm just like, for the life of me, I can't see how I'm going to make it. I'm in the first month or two of a 30-year prison sentence. And so after about 30 days being in segregation, they let me out into general population. And so at this point, we're looking at around November of 1998. And so my grandmother, she comes to visit me. And we're sitting down and we're talking. And she tells me, she says, "Grandson, I have a message for you." And so I'm thinking the message might be from a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, friend, whomever. The last person I was expecting to send me a message when I was in prison was God. But yet that's who the message was from. My grandmother told me that God told her to tell me that if I surrendered my life to him, that I would not do 30 years in prison. Now, I watched her entire life live faithfully to God. The God that she is asking me to surrender to, excuse me, but I haven't seen him in my life. He ain't showed up for me in no shape, form, or fashion. And so now you're asking me to surrender my life to him, this life of pain, this life of suffering, this life of hurt, this life of disappointment, this life of sadness. And she was like, "Grandson, that's exactly what I'm asking you to do." She was like, "Trust the God in which I've served all these years. Trust the God in which you've seen me serve all these years, because that same God is ready to enter into your life." And so I found myself asking her, well, grandmother, what does surrendering to God looks like? And she said, son, that's a part of the journey that's going to be between you and him. When I'm sitting in prison, I'm hurt, disappointed, and I keep saying these words intentionally because a lot of us find ourselves hurt. A lot of us find ourselves disappointed. A lot of us find ourselves angry. A lot of us find ourselves, wrapped in feelings that we have no idea what they are and how to deal with them, how to process them, where to place them, who to talk to concerning these feelings. And these feelings begin to overwhelm us over and over and over and over again. Because I was there. But she told me if I just surrender to God, that he would take me on a journey that will change my life. And so, I figured what could be worse than hurt? So why not surrender to God? Why not take this chance on this invisible person who I do not know, this so-called invisible person who has disappointed me, this so-called invisible person who can now take all this pain and suffering away and give me a different life. And so I started this journey of surrendering. And ladies and gentlemen, I tell you that surrendering to God was the best decision I ever made mentally, spiritually, emotionally, as well as physically. The greatest decision I ever made. Not going to bore you with all the details, but to make a long story short, because I began to surrender to God, he began to move in my life in ways I could not imagine. That 30-year prison sentence immediately, and I said this, I want you to mean, immediately, a 30-year prison sentence within 90 days of surrendering to God, a 30-year prison sentence was reduced to 15 years. 15 years. Because God wanted to show me that he was serious about using my life and didn't want me to sit there and wonder if this surrendering was going to be beneficial or not. So December of 1999, my mother came to visit me, and this time she brought me a journal, an empty journal book. And she said, son, God told me to tell you to start collecting your thoughts. And so on January the 1st, 2000, I opened up this journal book that my mother had left with me, and I wrote my first journal entry. And ladies and gentlemen, I would go on to journal for the next 13 years, just writing every single thing that God would tell me to write. And so September 12th, 2013, this arduous journey of incarceration ended. God blessed me, opened the gates, and sent me out of prison. Now, I know we are a church forum. I know we all believe in God, but I'm about to use some language that I do not want you to be disturbed by, but I have to tell you the story how it happened. So as I'm walking to be released from prison, the guard who's responsible for walking me to the front gate engages in a conversation with me. And he asked me, he said, Gethers, what are you going to do with your life? I said, man, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to get me an education. I'm going to make an impact, and I'm going to help other people put their lives back together. He laughs. He said, huh, really? He said, Gethers, you'll be back in prison within 3 years. I said, what? He said, yeah. Hold on to your seats. He said, Gethers, you ain't shit. You don't have shit, and you ain't gonna ever be shit. Therefore, I'll see you back in prison within 3 years. I'm lost for words. I'm like, who are you to speak death into my life? Who are you? But I didn't get mad at him, because that was his opinion, those was his views. But when I got out, I understood why he made those comments. I enrolled to be a student at Governor State University. I'm talking about I did this at the very beginning of being released from incarceration. I enrolled to be a student at Governor State University. This college told me that I could not be a student because I had a criminal background. So they denied me entry into this college. Devastation all over me. Now I'm gonna share this other part with you. Y'all better not laugh neither. I can see your faces. I attempted to date this young lady. This young lady tells me, David, I can't date you. I'm like, well, why not? She said, you are a convicted felon and your life is not going to amount to anything. And you can't give me the life that I expect for myself. And so therefore, I can't find myself connecting with you. So the guard disappointed me, the college disappointed me, and this young lady disappointed me. And we're talking all within the first 3 months of me getting out of prison. I went home, I cried my eyeballs out. I'm praying and I'm saying, God, why would you deliver me to only live a life of more disappointments? God's word to me was, David, I am going to use you as advertisement of my grace and my mercy. I'm going to use you as my redemption project. And I'm going to use you to show a world that I can take what the world deems as the scum of the earth and use it to turn people's lives completely around. I fought the school system on their rejection, winning that appeal, and that school system eventually allowed me to become a student. May of 2016, I graduated from that college with a bachelor's degree in communications. In May of 2019, I graduated from Olivet Nazarene University with a master's degree in urban ministry of helping people. 2017, I started my first business called David A. Gethers Speaks. 2020, I formed my first foundation called the Two Gethers Foundation, and we provide leadership to first-generation college students, and we give scholarship to first-generation college students. I then only started my second business, which is called, my second foundation, which is called the Social Justice Network. I formed it with some colleagues in New York to help fight prison reform and various things of that nature. Then I was forced, it was not my intention to start my third business. My third business is a publishing company called DAG Publishing. And that company was started because I was doing a mentoring workshop with 10 African-American boys aged 13. And the principal said, Mr. Gethers, this is the last stop for these young men. If you can't help them turn their life around, I'm expelling them from school. And she said, and we both know if I expel these 10 Black boys from school, we know what's going to become of their life. And she was like, and if you can't help them, then it is what it is. And so in this mentoring program with these young Black men, one of them one day asked me, could they read my journals? And of course I said no, because my journals is my pain, it's my suffering. It's all this foolishness I went through for the last 13 years. So I couldn't see myself sharing this with anyone. And as I'm leaving, God began to minister to my heart and to my head. And God told me, he said, if you're going to take people on a journey of transformation, you've got to be willing to show them your ugly scars. And so with that, I went home, I found a few of my journal books, and I took them to the school with me the next day, and I allowed these young men to start reading my journals. And ladies and gentlemen, by allowing these young men to read my journals, their life began to turn immediately. And so what happened is we would read a journal of every week that we were in session, and then we would discuss the journal, and then they were tasked with writing how that topic in particular was affecting their lives currently. And so when we got done, all these young men, they passed the course, they graduated from grammar school. and they begin to live some successful lives. And God would tell me, he said, David, it's now time to share your pain with the world. And so God gave me the title of my book, and it's called Weekday Remedies, WEAK Day Remedies. And it's a transformational journal. And what the journal does is it allows people to see my pain and suffering so that they can give them encouragement for the pain and suffering that they're going through. What's unique about this journal is it's handwritten. I told you I wrote it while I was in prison. And so the publishing companies refused to publish the book that was handwritten and that had misspelled words in it. But I can hear God tell me to put the book out in its original format because that is what's going to transform people's lives. And so because no one would publish the book, I was forced to start my own publishing company so that I can publish my own book. And that was all a miracle from God. And so for the last 10 years, because I've been out of prison 10 years now, all I've been doing is just traveling all over this country, helping people overcome adversity, barriers, and challenges, because we all get weak. We all have mental breaks. We all have emotional breaks. We all have spiritual breaks. We all have physical breaks. But in spite of the breaks that we have, none of them void the contract in which God has with us concerning our lives. And so my objective is to lock arms with community and people, help lead them to the other side of whatever their situation is, because I know from personal experience, on the other side of your disappointment, on the other side of your heartbreak, on the other side of your hurt, on the other side of your failures, on the other side of your setbacks, on the other side of your wrongdoings, on the other side of whatever it is you've done in life or has been done to you, on the other side is greatness. On the other side is happiness. On the other side is love. On the other side is opportunity. On the other side is a village and a community that will wrap their arms around you and support you and help you become who it is that God has ordained for you to be. And I know and believe in my heart of hearts that none of us have to succumb to what it is that we're facing. As I work in the mental health space, as I work in the suicide space, as I work in spaces with individuals who are troubled, the one thing that is common amongst everybody, people commit suicide because they lose hope. They believe in their heart of hearts that whatever they're going through at that precise moment, it is so difficult that they do not see any way out other than suicide. I was there. I didn't see no way out of prison other than suicide. So I know what it's like to lose your hope. I know what it's like to lose the light in your eyes. I know what it's like to feel like your situation is hopeless and you cannot make it to the other side. But I am here to tell you, I don't look like somebody who's been incarcerated for 15 years. I don't talk like someone who's been incarcerated for 15 years. I'm not educated like someone who's been incarcerated for 15 years. I don't even live a life like someone who's been incarcerated for 15 years. And why is that? Because the same transformation that God did in my life, He is standing at the door of your life, wanting to do the very same thing. And so that's my message. I'm sticking to it. Now let's just have a good old conversation about mental health, suicides, and overcoming adversity, barriers, and challenges.
David, and in the chat, I think someone asked, are there any visible warning signs of suicide, or can you talk about regarding your experience, or?
To me, I don't really believe there are warning signs when it comes to suicide. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of us, we walk around with pride. We don't want nobody to know that we're suffering. We don't want no one to know that we're going through a whole lot of stuff. We don't want other people to look at us and say, this person is doing A, B, C, D. Another thing is our pride won't let us raise our hand and say, hey, I need some help. So for the most part, there are no real visible signs to an individual who may commit suicide or who have suicide ideations. Let's just take one of the last most famous suicides with DJ Twitch. The day before, he is on social media in a video, happy, dancing, enjoying himself. And us on the outside looking in, we're like, oh man, he's living a great life. But yet, the very next day, he committed suicide. The very next day, he committed suicide. So every once in a while, you may see a sign or two. Someone may say, I'm thinking about committing suicide, or someone may allude to something along those lines. But for the most part, there are no real signs. And so when you ask somebody, hey, how are you doing? Pause long enough for them to tell you the truth. Because most of the time, they don't think you really want to know the truth. But if you pause long enough, be like, no, seriously, how are you doing? And give them an opportunity to express how they're really feeling, you'll be surprised. So that would be my answer for that question.
Awesome. I think that's a good answer, because there are people who signs or and symptoms may not be visible, but I think as family members, friends, and community people, that we should be aware that there are signs that some do show. Like in the Twitch example, that was a format to like social media, but it really wasn't an intimate person. I think intimate people can sometimes see signs or ignore signs. And I think that signs are something that we do need to be aware of as parents, to the behaviors and actions of our teenagers, as well as our family members who are adults. But you are absolutely correct. There are some times where there just is no understanding, there was no signs and things all like that. Thanks for sharing.
Welcome.
I appreciate this, Pastor Turnley. David, I appreciate what you said about our ability to listen more deeply. Can often be a way in which God reveals things to us that others are going through, if we will pay attention and listen more deeply to what people have to say. Oftentimes people are trying to tell us something, but life is so busy that we don't always dig deeper to hear, what are you really going through? So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Your soul story.
You're welcome.
So David, as you were there, I think we're getting better, but in the Black and brown community, people have a history of not seeking mental health treatment. And so what can we do to try to encourage that? We understand that suicidal numbers are increasing. And so we're just concerned about getting people the help that they need. How would you recommend?
Well, the first thing I would say, Skylar, is we have got to do a better job at educating our community that mental health is good. Going to see a psychiatrist or a therapist or a psychologist, whatever it may be, it is good. It's nothing wrong with it. I remember growing up, my mama, my family, we got all type of family secrets and stuff like that. And they would always sweep stuff under the rug. And I remember as I got older, one day I was just sitting there and I said to myself, this is one of the most foolish things we could have ever told our people, is to sweep stuff under the rug. Because here's why it's stupid. The rug is inside of your house. And so if you keep sweeping stuff under the rug and you keep walking around your house, at some point, you're going to sweep so much stuff under the rug that you yourself are going to trip over it. And when you trip over all the stuff that you done swept under the rug, the only person you're hurting is yourself. So it's time out for sweeping things up under the rug. We have got to realize it's okay to say I need help. It's okay to say that my emotions are getting the best of me. It's okay to say that I don't know how to deal with what I'm going through. Our community needs to know that you are not crazy. And I'm ashamed of using that word because we have to take it out of our vocabulary, especially in this space. But you're not crazy because you seek help. You got to be willing to seek help. You got to, because we are experiencing things in life that emotionally and spiritually we are not equipped to deal with. And so we need somebody who's professional to come walk alongside us, share their real personal experience and say, hey, first of all, what you're going through is okay. I coined this term. You all are free to use it this day going forward. You are entitled to your feelings, but you're not entitled to your behavior. And the problem is we disassociate feelings and behaviors. We think just because I'm mad, I'm angry, upset, I'm entitled to slap somebody, I'm entitled to go postal, I'm entitled to cuss somebody out, I'm entitled to do. No, you're not. You're entitled to feel, but the Bible even says anger, but sin not. And because we don't know what to do with this anger, we don't know what to do with this frustration, we don't know what to do with these fears, we don't know what to do with this love and this joy, we go behaving in ways that are not right. But if you get yourself inside of a group, you get yourself inside of therapy, you get yourself in some professional help, then you can begin to understand what your emotions are. And now you can develop healthy behaviors to deal with your emotions.
Thank you. I'm just checking the chat.
Yeah, Skylar, there was a question from Greta, and Greta was asking a question of, so how do one know if that person that have tried to commit suicide won't try and do it again?
So according to statistics, you don't know. Unfortunately, individuals who have attempted suicide once, statistics say that there's a 70% chance that they'll attempt suicide again. So you have to, one, be aware of that fact, that this individual, life got so bad for them that they've tried it once, and the likelihood of them trying it again is very, very possible. So what you and I and what the rest of us need to do is we just have to be aware. We can't turn these blind eyes. We can't walk around in this ignorant mentality thinking that these things are not real possibilities, because they are. And so we have to be a better support village. And I'm gonna say it again, we got to be a better support village. Eric says something, there are like hints and small signs that an individual isn't doing so well. And you have got to be willing to take that small sign or that small hint of an individual not doing well and really lean into that person. Be like, Eric, look here. I'm gonna use you for an example, Eric. Eric, look here, man. I know you lost your job a few weeks ago and you got a wife and a few kids, but how are you really handling that situation? Hey, this is me and you one-on-one. Talk to me. How are you really handling this situation? And so we have got to prevent safety for individuals who are going through things. We got to let them know that it's okay in this very moment to tell the truth about how you feel. And if we become communities of safety for individuals to share how they really feel, then we could do a better job of getting them into to the direct treatment facilities that they need to get the help that they need. And it's only by education and creating safety that we will begin to attack these high rising numbers of suicide in the Black and brown community.
There's two comments, one from Chuck. Chuck says, I feel like it's especially hard for young men to share their feelings or experiences with suicidal thoughts. There is a stigma around speaking out about mental health that young people seem to be attempting to break. And then we also have Dr. Beverly Chin. She says, we must listen to young people more closely and as a community move away from the idea that the person is young and does not have anything to be depressed or anxious about. I have lost a student to suicide. He did show some signs, but grandparents missed it.
Yeah, I would just go back to the community of safety. First of all, we can't ignore anyone at any age thinking, like the comment said, that they're too young to be dealing with anything. I have 3 daughters, 30, 28, and I have a 7-year-old. And I know in interacting with my daughters, life for them, I mean, I thought I had it rough growing up in Inglewood. Back in my day, the most difficult thing we had to worry about probably was sneaking into the alcohol cabinet, getting us something to drink, maybe smoking, sneaking smoking a cigarette, cutting class, or something of that. Those were the big temptations per se that I dealt with in the 70s and 80s. But now here in 2023, our young kids, they dealing with sexual identity, they dealing with weed, cocaine, being homeless, mother and father strung out on drugs, or mother and father in prison. The temptation and the things that our kids today are facing with pale in comparison. I mean, the stuff we went through wasn't nothing, not to belittle my stuff, but our kids today are suffering from some harsh things. And because they are so confused in their minds, and then we got this old adage, children should be seen and not heard. We don't create a safe space for our children to tell us how they really feel and what they're really going through in life. And so, I mean, when you look at the numbers, over the last 5 years, suicide by young Black and brown kids ages from like 13 to 25 have increased by like 25, 35%. So statistics tell us they do have something to be depressed about. Statistics tell us they do have things that they're going through, and we as a community have got to listen to their voice. We can't discard them and dismiss them and blow them off as like they don't have anything to say, because they do. And you all might not want to hear this, but one of the reasons why our children are committing suicide is because us as parents are dismissing their feelings. And we can't keep dismissing their feelings. We have got to treat them like they are human beings like anybody else. Give them a space to freely talk so that we can get them the help that they truly need.
Okay, there's a question from Tamara. We do need to be open to people telling the truth, but it also matters how we respond when people share. Would you give examples of good and not so good ways of responding when someone shares their truth with us?
So I'll give you the bad examples. Somebody comes share something devastating, like, man, get out of here, man. You ain't going through that, man. Knock it off, man. That's a bad example. If somebody tell they're going through something, don't disregard it. Don't blow it off. Don't pretend like what they're going through. Don't minimize what they're going through. That right there is the ultimate way to keep somebody from sharing anything with you ever again, or it'll have that person feel like no one cares about what I'm going through. The best way to assist somebody is, if somebody comes to you, really give them the moment and the time that they need to share what they're going through. And one thing I learned in workshops and from the practical part in the books and the courses I've taken is when someone shares something with you, especially suicide ideations, one, ask them, do they have a plan? Two, ask them, do they got a weapon, or, how do they plan on committing suicide? A lot of people think that if you ask somebody straight out, do you have suicidal ideation, they think that will put the thought into their mind. That's the furthest thing from the truth. It's okay to ask somebody, have you thought about harming yourself today? Have you thought about harming other people today? And if they say, yeah, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan on how you plan to commit suicide? Because you need to know just how serious this matter is for this individual. And you got to be willing to provide all the help and resources that you can. So don't blow nobody off who comes to you in a mental crisis. Have enough humanity and enough love to give them 5 to 10 minutes. Because sometimes just get it off their chest is good enough to help them move forward. It's like having an upset stomach. You eat something you're not supposed to eat, until you regurgitate it or BM it out of your system, it's going to mess with your stomach. And mental health is no different. Until we provide spaces for these people to get this stuff out of the inside of them, then we leave them with upset stomachs.
Another thing is for us, you basically was talking contract for safety. That's what you was pretty much speaking on. But people who do not feel comfortable or have an understanding with contracting for safety, a good thing that you can get from like he said, from experience and workshops and reading, a good tool is to ask them or have a comment of, let's seek help together. So you don't leave that situation to where they are alone. If you don't feel comfortable, you're not in the mental health profession, but this was presented to you, hey, let's research it together. Let's get on, let's Google, certain things. If you don't know the 988 number or something like that, y'all can do that together. And that person feels, that person, male and female, feels that you are listening. They feel that you are supportive, and they're not alone in their search for receiving help. Because once you get with the professionals, then you're right there, but you can do it together.
Good answer, Eric.
There's a question from Simone. So are you saying that we must break the boundaries and barriers in people's lives who we discern may be suicidal?
Yes, if you care enough, yeah, you got to break the boundaries and the borders. You got to do whatever it takes for that person to make it another day. And they may be disappointed, they may be hurt that you violated this trust that you all have established. But I mean, if the ultimate goal is mental health and safety, then sometimes you may have to break the boundaries. Sometimes you have to go against quote unquote ethical principles in order to get this person the help that they need. For me, in my space, I'm charged with the first thing is first do no harm. And so in order to do no harm, I can't just leave them with these thoughts and say, well, they trusted me, so I can't share this with nobody else. Now, I'm not going to put up no Facebook post and talk about what somebody told me, but I am going to take the next steps and try to get this person some help with or without their consent, because I'm concerned about them or somebody else.
With David, we're at the point where we're going to transition to our support group, but I would just want to ask you, do you have any final comments to make before we transition? You have really enlightened us. We appreciate you telling us your story and addressing our questions and comments, but I want to give you an opportunity to make a final comment or statement or.
Well, I'll just tell you all, you can follow me on TikTok, LinkedIn, and Instagram. All of it is with my name, David A. Gethers. TikTok is Weekday Remedies. And on there, I put up inspirational quotes and messages to help people just overcome adversity, barriers, and challenges. I use my story every single day, because I tell people it's not mine. My story belongs to the world. It's a message of hope for the world. So I have no freedom of hiding it. And I just use it to help everybody. And so if you need my help, assistance, or whatever, just reach out to me and we'll work it out, and I'll come help you out.
Thank you so much. I don't know how your schedule looks, but we would love for you to stay on if you can. At this time, we're gonna stop recording to begin our support group. I'll go ahead and introduce our facilitator.